And I'll tell you something, you know, Ronald Reagan said that, who was the inspiration for me getting involved in politics. He's the greatest president of this generation, really of this century, I think. Reagan said that our freedoms are only maintained and protected through hard-earned effort on a daily basis. Those are his words, hard-earned effort on a daily basis. And that's what you do, and that's what we're asking you to do more of, and that's what Americans for Prosperity is about. I do a fair number of dinners like this going around the country, and which I enjoy doing, but one of the most inspiring dinners I've ever been to was just a few weeks ago in, of all places, New York City, which is not really one of my favorite places to go. It was on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange, and it was an event honoring the living recipients of the Congressional Medal of Honor, America's highest military honor. There are 112 individuals living who earned the Medal of Honor through their service in wartime in combat. 31 of these heroes were at the dinner that evening on the New York Stock Exchange. And it's an amazingly humbling experience to walk around and be in the presence of folks like that, who've done so much, risked so much. And I didn't know what to say. I wanted to meet these folks, and I felt, you know, frankly, kind of awkward and didn't know. So I just started asking them really one question. I would just walk up and say, hi, I thank you for your service to our country. And, you know, on a night like this, when we're on one of the kind of, you know, one of the centers of the American economy and economic freedom, what are you thinking about? You know, we're here to honor you and your service. What are you thinking tonight? And their answers were normally two things, interestingly enough. Inevitably, they would say, well, I'm thinking about my friends who didn't make it back, and they're the real heroes, not me. Almost to a man, they said that. And the second thing they said was, I'm thinking about my family. I'm thinking about my kids, my grandkids, most of them had grandkids, and I'm thinking about maybe in some way what I did helped them have an America where they could do what they're doing, where they could live their lives and enjoy all that our nation has to offer. And one gentleman who had won the Medal of Honor on Omaha Beach, or the day after, he'd gone on to Omaha Beach and he won the medal the next day. He grabbed my hand. He was 82 years old, firm, and he grabbed my hand and he said, I tell you what I'm most proud of. They gave me a medal for something I did on really one day. It was the D-Day. But I'm most proud of the fact that for a year, I fought hard every day across France. Every day I fought hard. And I know I got the medal for one particular day, but I'm real proud that I spent a year fighting for my country. And I walked away that night, and that gentleman's words were kind of echoing in my ears. And it was something that, and I don't mean to trivialize it by bringing it over to perhaps what we're trying to do in protecting our economic freedoms, but I was just inspired by the fact that, you know, we ought to be doing something every day to protect our economic freedoms, and really our personal freedoms as Americans. And really, it all boils down to the American dream. And Ronald Reagan had another quote, and I wanted to pull it up because I often get it a little bit wrong. But Reagan said this, speaking about the American dream: I want to make sure we preserve an America where a person's achievements are limited only by the size of their dreams. I want to make sure we preserve an America where a person's achievements are limited only by the size of their dreams. And what an eloquent way to put it, as only former President Reagan could really do. I mentioned earlier I grew up in Spartanburg, South Carolina. Actually, it was a little mill village called Lyman, South Carolina. And my mom and dad were Frankie and Mildred Phillips, and Mom didn't make it through high school. She got her GED later on, but she worked in a wire plant for 24 years, the 4 to midnight shift. And Dad was a bus driver for a number of years. And then his eyesight started going bad. And I don't know if you know this or not, but when your eyesight's bad, most bus companies really don't want a bus driver who can't see, which that's fair enough, I think. So he became the night manager at a diner, Papa Sam's Diner, Breakfast Nook in Spartanburg. It's still there. He would go in about 11 and work till 8, just before the breakfast rush the next morning, I guess 7 or 8 o'clock. And their vision of the American dream was pretty simple. It was get a house and own a house one day. That was something that to them that was really, their parents had been, one of them had been a sharecropper and the other side of the family had worked in the textile mills, and they never really owned their own place. And so in their mind, when Reagan talked about the American dream, that meant home ownership for them. And it also meant have a family. And then their dream became, and probably a lot of you folks can relate to this, they had 4 children. I was the youngest one. And their vision and American dream became, get those 4 kids through college. I want to say we would have been the first generation of our family to go to college. So along with owning a house, which they got that done, and having a deep faith, which they had and have had throughout their whole lives, it was their kids going to school. And I'll never forget, Mom would get home about 12:15 in the morning, and a lot of nights I'd stay up with her because Dad would be out at the breakfast nook as a manager, and I was the youngest kid, so I was the last one at home. And she would go, now son, you're going to get that education, and you're going to go to college, and you're going to get that degree, because nobody can take your education away from you. And I remember as a kid thinking, who on earth would want it, you know? But I never said that to her. Don't get me wrong, I never said that to her because I would have got whacked. But that was her dream. And she would say, you know what, you're going to go to college and you're going to get yourself one of those coat and tie jobs. That's what she called it. You're going to get a coat and tie job. And sure enough, after all these years, the youngest Phillips guy, Tim, I managed to get off to college, and I went to 4 colleges in 6 years. I did the installment plan, drop out for a while, work for a while, make a little money, go back. It was the kind of the long installment plan. But I got my degree eventually, got a coat and tie job, and I'll never forget coming home to Mom and to Lyman, the little house in Lyman, South Carolina, and my tie, and I was so proud of myself. I accomplished a big dream, and I knew that was part of her dream, and she said, look at you in a coat and tie. Now, will you get it off and cut my grass? You're getting lazy. So the coat and tie thing didn't work. But I'm digressing. I know I'm digressing. But that was their part of the American dream. And now my wife and I, if you fast forward years later, we've got 4 children. And I look at them at night and I go, man, you know what? I want them to have the same freedom that I had. To go out and go as far as your dreams and hopes and aspirations will take you. Because that's what America is all about, right? It's about going out and living your dreams and having the freedom to do that. And that's what we're fighting for at Americans for Prosperity. I know that's something that you fight for right here in Wake. And I appreciate your being part of what's going on and what we're doing. And we're doing a summit, a conference, on October 4th and 5th. And I know some of you are coming up too. We're calling it, not surprisingly, after all I talked about tonight, the Defending the American Dream Summit in Washington, D.C. And I've got a pamphlet here that hopefully is at your table. My hero, Reagan's on the front of it. But I'll tell you the genesis of it, and I mentioned it earlier, but it bears repeating. When we were on this earmark tour, this ending earmark tour, and we were seeing all the crazy spending that's going on, one of the senators, we were at an event one day, we had a big crowd there, it was a hot day in August, I mean sweating like crazy. I think one of my loafers actually melted into the pavement. I mean, it was a hot day. And the guy we were there with turned to me and he goes, you got to take those people to Washington because we've got to make sure the other side's being heard, our side's being heard. And so we picked October 4th and 5th very carefully. The appropriation bills in Congress will come to a head in early and mid-October. That's when they'll actually make the final decisions on how much of your money is going to be spent this year in Congress. And we wanted to have at least 1,000 of our activists and members, that's our goal, 1,000 of our grassroots activists from across the country who would come to Washington, give up time with their families, take time away maybe from work, and send a message to the politicians up there that we're tired of you wasting our money and we want responsible, corruption-free government.